Timothy.
Here.
Board Member Burns. Board Member Estime Irving.
Present.
Board Member Charles.
Present.
We have a quorum, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And now we'll pass it over to our executive director. And welcome everyone to our budget workshop. This is not a regularly scheduled CRA meeting, but a budget workshop as we prepare for the upcoming fiscal year. So I'll pass it on over to you, Madam Executive Director.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. After a long recess, this is the first time we've seen each other all together, so welcome back. Junior, could you put the presentation on the board, please? Thank you so much. Here we go. So as you can see on your screen, North Miami CRA's fiscal 24-25, which we're currently completing, has been a year of strategic focus for the North Miami CRA. The agency has centered its attention on redevelopment plans for its priority corridors, which are Northwest 7th Avenue and West Dixie Highway. In reference to Northwest 7th Avenue, the CRA did host its first corridor symposium where it unveiled a preliminary redevelopment plan for the corridor, and it received community feedback. It was well attended by this board, as well as community partners and developers and residents. For West Dixie corridor, we have had 2 community meetings, and this is a good place for me to say that we are capturing all of our activity until September 30th. So one of those community meetings is actually happening this Thursday, and I hope everybody at the board will be able to attend. But this was a way to engage both the business community as well as property owners to be able to share their ideas for the corridor. With Northwest 7th Avenue, we've also gained, at that symposium, we were able to present the facade guidelines that we're proposing along with an action plan. Both those items still need to come before this board for official approval. But we, as you all know, the Northwest 7th Avenue is also included in the comp plan and LDR amendments that are happening at the state. So once that is done by the city council, if there are any changes that need to happen with the action plan or the guidelines, we'll do those before we actually bring it before the CRA to be able to have those approved. Furthermore, the agency allocated its redevelopment revenue bond series 2024 to fund the following projects: Nomi Square, Claude Pepper Park's redevelopment, the restaurants, Solo Miami, along with setting aside funding for programmatic initiatives like land acquisition and multifamily rehabilitation program.
Is Nomi Square Integra? Is that
Yes.
that project? Okay.
Yes, it is. True to its continued mission, the CRA also continued its signature programs with housing and commercial. So we completed 20 projects for the prior fiscal year, which was approximately $600,000, and funded 25 new residential projects totaling $750,000 for the current fiscal year. This year,
I'm sorry, that's for housing rehab?
that's for housing rehabilitation.
So you guys are caught up now? So you guys...
Okay, so that's where I'm going to
Get
go.
ready to get excited. I'm sorry.
So be excited. I definitely want the board to be excited because we were able to do, when we increased the pool of the contractors that we had, we were able to assign out all the projects that we had pending from the prior fiscal year. So those are pretty much complete. And so now we're able to start on the 25 projects that we do have. I will explain to you a little bit later on. There may be some additional funding that we've been able to source because our carryover was higher than what we expected. So we will be able to, if the board chooses, we will be able to do 2 phases of the residential lottery. And what that means is we had funding for 25 homes. We had 37 people on the lottery. If the board does allow, we'd be able to completely do everybody who did apply to the lottery to do the additional 12, and I would call that phase 2. And then we would still have a lottery next January on our normal cycle to take in the normal amount of people that we're able to do. So that is something that we'll get into further detail later on.
Okay.
But that is something that the board can authorize.
But congratulations on getting caught up from the prior fiscal
From the prior fiscal year.
At 1 year, we were 2 years behind with residential rehab because
Yes.
the pool was so small. So
Correct. So we are starting late this year, but it's because we're catching up, and we will still expand that pool even more so that we can always be ahead of the curve. But
Okay,
we did
no
that
problem.
work. Thank you. Additionally, the agency did fund 16 small businesses in the amount of $2.085 million through the commercial grant
16
program.
or 14?
16, I'm sorry, there's a typo. I'll make sure at the September 9th meeting, you will not have typos on your paper. This does include, to be clear, businesses that were funded through the West Dixie Tech program along with the Northwest 7th Avenue Biz Boost. I just did the whole aggregate of what that was.
Okay.
Okay. Moving forward, fiscal year 2025, Pioneer Boulevard, which we know is our major capital project that we're engaged in at this time. Design phase is pretty much completed and is progressing through the permitting phase. I do want to take this a moment to address the project. It may seem like it's maybe going a bit slower than we anticipate. However, there is going to be a catch-up period, and what that means is the consultants did advise that it's best for us to go through the permitting phase prior to releasing the construction documents. When we have the construction documents, we will then put out the RFP. If we waited to do the permitting after the RFP, then there may be changes to those documents at that time, because when they go through the permitting process, they may find that there's different things that they need to do. So now that we are doing the permitting prior to putting out the construction docs, when we put out the RFP, we anticipate that they'd be able to be ready to go because the project is already permitted. They won't have to do that part themselves. So it speeds up that portion.
So obviously we can do a permit without having a contractor?
No, we're permitting the design. So we're making sure that the designs that as designed, that project is permitted in that fashion.
Okay.
So then the construction docs are going to be drafted as such, and so the solicitation would be responsive to a permitted design.
Okay.
Okay. Other accomplishments include funding MOCA's Art on the Plaza and their education program, maintaining support for recurring programs like the Women's Empowerment Luncheon, Government Week, and Teach to Fish. But this is what we're all here for, the numbers. So I wanted to go through last year's the approved budget, what we're proposing as the amended budget, and our current year to date. Our proposed amendment does show an increased carryover and our interest earnings being higher than what we proposed. With our carryover, this does happen. The carryover that we do have approved normally is different from what we propose to amend, which is why we're doing the amendment, because we are projecting for September 30th. November 1st, once everything closes and we see the cash in the bank, we'll have the real figure of what the true carryover is. For this year, we did have an increase of roughly $1.2 million. Additionally, our interest was higher than what we anticipated. We anticipated $200,000, and it ended up being $578,300. So we do have those reflected here.
Is that the interest from the loan? Or?
Well, because we had more cash on hand, yes, there's more interest that we're gained.
Right. So could you just explain why the drastic number?
For the interest or the carryover?
Interest, right.
Well, we have a lot more money now. We have the $52 million worth of loan money that we didn't have before. So that money is generating more interest than the smaller amount we normally would have had.
Okay.
However, we're very conservative with our projections, so it's always better to get that nice surprise.
Okay.
And the remaining 1.2, you said there was a 1.2 million.
Yes, the carryover was 1.2 more than we anticipated. So if you see in our expenditures, in order to present you a balanced budget, I did reallocate those into the housing and the commercial. However, if you do want those dollars allocated differently, we can discuss that. But that's for this fiscal year. But again, to show a balanced budget, that's where I did put the funding.
You put it in commercial and housing rehab.
That is correct. We do have a slide that breaks down our carryover a little bit more. As you can see, administratively, we have 33,000 that's carrying over. Our operating is 4.2. I want to explain that. The reason why it looks like 4.2 is because this year was the first year that we had the debt reserve funded. We don't do that every year. Once you fund the reserve, you only fund it 1 year. So this carryover really is 1.2. Take that 4 out, because that will always be there. You don't have to add more money to it. Our infrastructure grants is 6.2 as the carryover. Again, this is a $5 million that's sitting here for the Allure project. Remember, we are supposed to carry $5 million for the permitting phase. That's what the contract, the agreement did anticipate for the county and the city permitting process, which we are supposed to pay.
So that's upon getting the construction
That is
done.
correct, but we do carry that money there, but that is for that project. So the carryover without that project is really 1.2. And if you remember, we have residences that know me that still needs to complete their reimbursement process. They're already underway, but that carryover is explained with those 2 items.
Question.
Yes.
With the infrastructure carryover being so high and knowing that there's projects in the queue waiting, could we have used some of that $5 million for, like you said, Nomi residency or so forth, or gardens or the restaurants? There's kind of clear up to help them speed track, since they're actually in queue and not someone who we don't even have construction docs for?
That could happen. However, that would have to, the item would have to come back in order to do that, because remember, we're carrying that. I mean, at any moment that he presents his paperwork to say that he needs his reimbursement, we need to stand ready to be able to perform. So that's why we've been carrying that $5 million.
We'll have a sidebar.
No, they did get an extension from the board, and so they're still within their extension period.
And what is it? Was it 1 year? Or
It was I think we initially was 1 year, and then they came back and they got a further extension prior to that time. So I think it was either 18 months or 2 years. I'll get that number to you.
Yeah, because, well, just in speaking with the owner, like, I know they're tied up on another project, and
Yeah.
everyone's waiting for rates to go down. But I think we need to have a board discussion about, you know, holding money in the bank when we could be funding other projects.
Yeah. Okay, our grants and initiatives, that is our housing and our commercial dollars. These are projects that are already encumbered, but they're not fully spent down, so they are underway, and so these are POs. Northwest 7th Avenue, the carryover here is $2.9 million. As I did explain, there has been some funding that has been disseminated here. We did approve Nomi Village. We did approve some other small businesses. The Biz Boost program, Breaking the Cycle, was also approved. Chef Creole's project, some of that money did support some of it. However, as you know, 25% of the county TIF does get allocated. Pardon?
35%.
35%, sorry. 35% of the county TIF does get reserved for Northwest 7th Avenue. And so when you have that money, we are doing the long-term strategic planning with all of that. As soon as the action plan that I mentioned earlier and those facade guidelines are approved by the board, we'll be able to start spending down that money. But we're waiting for the approval at the City Council for the comp plan amendments to happen before we bring it to the CRA board. But we do stand ready to start implementing some of these strategic processes for the actual infrastructure, not just funding businesses. Moving on to our our revenues. Yes, our proposed revenues. So the carryover that we're proposing is the 57 million. We will know pretty much again November what that real number is. Our city increment revenue did increase to 16 million, and our county tax revenue did increase to 10 million. We are again projecting very conservatively that 250 number for our interest and our miscellaneous revenue at about $9,000. Again, that carryover 57, more than 95% of that money is tied up on POs, but we are carrying over those things, and again high dollar amounts because we did fund several high dollar projects. Moving along to our proposed expenditures. As you can see, there is some increase to our admin costs, but not that much. I would say about a $35,000 overall increase to our admin costs. And if you move over to our proposed operating costs, again, you do see some increase here again, but this is where we do have our debt service amounts, our debt reserve amounts, and all of those numbers are housed in our operating costs. So that inflated balance is because of those numbers that we do carry year to year.
Quick question.
Yes.
Why is your advertising and notices, is that because you have less projects, dropped by in half?
So the way that I'm transitioning, rather than doing a notice every single meeting, what we do is what we're calling an omnibus notice at the beginning of the year with the meetings that we know that we are supposed to have scheduled. We meet the first Tuesday of every month. If there's a special meeting, a workshop like this one, or it needs to be a cancellation, there are fewer reasons to have to do the $900 noticing every time. You do it one time, it's there, then we can do our social media and our constant contact reminders, but doing one notification will help our costs come down. But again, we needed to have some funding still in here to be able to accommodate different types of meetings that we're doing.
Okay.
Oh, so you guys notice to the Herald as well?
Yes.
So you're just going to do one instead of?
We're going to try to do one, but the year is flexible, right? So I definitely want to do, again, the first Tuesday of every month that we normally have. And of course, we still have the advisory committee that we have to do notices for. So it's not just the board. We have to do separate notices for the committee. So those are the reasons that we do that.
And didn't this change, like the noticing guidelines where that you can use?
For that website, yeah, but that website still is not, is it operational yet as yet? It is now? Okay, so we will be pursuing that and seeing if there's some savings to be had. Continuing, we see here our capital grants and infrastructure grants. I would like to draw your attention to West Dixie Corridor. As you can see, I am proposing to increase that line item to $1 million. What I would like to ask the board is for the opportunity to implement a block-by-block facade improvement for the corridor, beginning from the north end of our boundaries, coming down. I was really hoping I'd have renderings for you tonight. The renderings will be available at the luncheon, so please come at the luncheon so you can see what we are trying to propose. But this would be basically a facade improvement guidelines where we would do all of the work. Our contractors would do the work. We would have to, of course, get the property owners to participate in the program, but we're not asking for a match requirement. But if we go ahead and we reface West Dixie, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to start attracting more businesses there, really start improving that corridor. We are doing a lot of work on Northwest 7th. If West Dixie is a priority corridor, we need to match the work that we're trying to do there. So I wanted to launch a pilot program. The location that I chose is a plaza right there at 140th and West Dixie. But again, I'll be able to show pictures, and of course in separate briefings, I'll be able to provide those renderings to you all for your feedback.
So that would be one block area.
That will be the first pilot. Hopefully, if the board does approve that, we could go ahead and get that done. And incrementally every year, if we're adding and funding that approach, then we would be able to have a whole corridor done, I would say, pretty significantly quickly. You can see that change very quickly.
And is it including sidewalk and landscaping as well?
Yes, it is. This is a proposed amount. I don't know that it's going to be $1 million, but the renderings will show I'm getting a ballpark cost of what we want to start small just to show the proof of concept, and then we'll be able to move forward and see if it's something that we are able to do.
Are you still going to have money separate from your block by block, that if you're concentrating on one particular block, but you have somebody who's ready and willing, able to go 4 blocks away with the facade, are we still able to help them? Or are we going to make them wait it move down the line?
That is in consideration, and budget will determine what we're able to do. If we need to fully fund, if fully funding the block by block approach means that we have to pause on smaller ones, I would make that recommendation to the board. You would decide if you wanted to do that, but I do think the impact of seeing a full block redeveloped in 1 year is going to be so significant. If you look at the work that the CRA has completed over the years, all of the projects that you have completed throughout the whole entire district, it's diluted. The effect is very diluted because you don't see it in one area. It's just spread across the entire 60% of North Miami. If you were to put that 60% on all the work that we've done, we've transformed the city already, but you just can't see it. And so if we're able to go ahead and do a block by block approach and really concentrate our efforts, I think you would see that pay off very, very quickly.
If I may, to your point, I do believe that the block by block approach is the way to go. Because when we, say if we do something here at City Hall and then next stop is over at US 1, you will not see any improvement because just right in between, things don't look good. But if we just go on one block, we clean that up and then we move to the next one like you are proposing. I do believe that's the best way to go. It's just not for West Dixie, but just the entire city whenever we're doing work, because that's looking at it, residents always complain about sidewalk and stuff like that, but the city constantly putting sidewalk. But what happened is that probably you have one set on 120th Street, the next one is 131st, one is 16th Ave. Do you understand? So if we do that quickly, everybody will see it. Oh, this is nice, and then we move and then get the next one. So I do believe that's the way to go.
Thank you. Moving on, we're looking at our redevelopment bond, our projected expenditures. As you can see, we have Rocks Park. The mixed-use developments are the 4 projects that I did this name at the beginning of the workshop. We also do have land acquisition dollars set aside. This is something I will be discussing in briefings to propose certain parcels that we may want to consider acquiring. Again, this is not something I want to go into too much detail because prices go up dramatically when people find out that we want to purchase.
Want to buy the flea market, and then boom,
Boom,
shut it down.
20 million. And then of course the multifamily rehab program. Again, this is just another summary of what I just described. And then a written summary is what we want to focus on for 25-26 is land acquisition, launching the multifamily rehab program, piloting a single-family home builder program. This is something that we've been trying to do for a few years, but with some of the land acquisition proposals that I'll be sending you, this may become a reality. Implementing the construction workers training program, and of course the West Dixie corridor improvements, should that be approved by the board. Continuing our residential rehabilitation program, our commercial grants, infrastructure grants, moving forward with Pioneer Boulevard's renovation, and the Liberty Gardens project. This is still a project that we are trying to get off the ground. We are working very closely with the contractor on this case and seeing if it can happen. If it can't, then we'll be bringing it back to the board to repurpose those dollars and that project. For Northwest 7th Avenue, we want to start actually implementing the action plan that we have, as well as engage in some land acquisition. I do also want to take a moment to discuss certain funding requests that we have on the table. I do know, so last year we did do the tot lot improvements, and as an extension of that same project, we can also fund the covering for that. We can do that within this fiscal year. I did make an accommodation in the budget, so that's already in this budget. As well as for moving forward into next fiscal year, Enchanted Forest is definitely something that is trying to be prioritized, and the work there is the invasive tree removal along with developing a horse canopy. Enchanted Forest is within the CRA's boundaries, so it's something that could be considered, along with renovating the bathrooms at Griffin Center, the Griffin's Community Center, just making sure that those bathrooms are better than they currently are. So those are a few funding requests on the table there. And I do also want to let you all know, you're used to seeing that line item of the 163 initiatives. Those allocations all still exist. I have just now put them in the line item that they should be on. So for example, if it's a commercial request, I've made that allocation in commercial. If it's a residential request, I've made those allocation in residential, because that line item, I guess no other CRA necessarily says it that way, so it always begs a question, and I don't want to keep having the county question our budget when we go. Even though it's an understandable response that I give, I think it's best for us to disperse those funds where they are, but those are still carved out for those projects. At this time, please let me know your feedback, and if you have any other questions, so that we can modify the numbers so that we can brief, and then September 9th, hopefully we'll have an approved budget.
I just want to make a comment. You've wore two hats this year, and you kept the CRA going, and you kept a lot of projects moving, and I think that you should be recognized for that. That you were able to keep the CRA moving, get some great projects underway, get some permitting done, and now looking forward with your full attention on the CRA, we're going to be wishing for some really great things this coming year.
Thank you. It was only possible by an incredible staff, so please give my staff recognition as well.
They look tired.
And Jimmy too, right?
They're so excited to be here.
It's okay. I feel like Mercury's in retrograde or something.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
For I know we have some project that we've been holding dollars, a lot of money down for them project year after year after year. So is there a time that we just push the brake if this project doesn't get started? So we need to move, and then so because I know this is a problem. So we don't usually talk about that, but I know this is a problem because I know there are like some projects been on hold for years. Any plan for that?
Yes, again, I think the best thing for me to do is to make sure that projects are still within their timelines, and if they're not, then I can make the board be aware of that. I know that in November I'll give a more comprehensive description of the loan funding that we've already given out, but I do want to assure the board that everybody has already submitted their first reimbursement except for one. So people are very actively, Redwood has not submitted their first reimbursement as yet. However, everybody else is in the process of. I'm meeting with one group tomorrow, and everybody else has already had one that I'm in the process of reviewing. So
Parks is getting ready to close at the end of next month or this month?
for their surtax, but they've already used this funding, remember, for that cleanup,
Yeah.
correct? So, people are using the loan funding, so those projects are moving forward. For the ones that are not, I just have to check the time period and make sure that people are still within or not, and then have conversations and get direction from you all as to how you want to proceed.
But everyone's contract is based on funding availability, correct?
Yes.
So my thing is like, we're at the end of the fiscal year, and we have a high carryover.
We do.
And like I said, we have projects in the queue, and folks who want to, projects that are actually completed and still in the queue. So my thing is, at what point do you all make the recommendation to us, or do we have to tell you guys to say, hey, let's, NOMI residency is closed out. Just go ahead and fund them, and then in the next fiscal year, if we have to reappropriate that money, we reappropriate it back. So how do you move forward, or what direction are you looking from us as the board?
So I think we probably will discuss those more in-depth in briefings when I can show you the timelines that are associated. Right now, I'm not sure that I could support and say that we don't have the funding availability, because I'm showing extra dollars in our budget. So I don't think I could say that at this current moment. However, if it's a situation of using that funding now because we know that person isn't ready, and saying, okay, when you are ready based on funding availability, then I think we may have to redraw some papers. I think our
I was just going to comment too.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree that the funding availability is not really the bright line test. Each of the grant agreements, has conditions precedent that must be met by the grantee, meaning there's dates certain by which they need to get their site plan approved or their building permits approved. So if they don't get that done by that date, that gives the board the legal right then to terminate that grant agreement and reallocate that funding. So as the executive director said, I think what we need to do is just take a look at each of the agreements and come up with the timelines and see who's in compliance, who's not, if there's, who's close to not being in compliance, and then we can sit down with each of you and discuss it.
Okay.
Steve, does the governor's state of emergency impact CRA projects the same way it does?
That's a very good question.
Same way it
Board Member
does
Burns.
city projects where the clock hasn't started ticking yet because of the state of emergency.
So that question has come up. I have opined on numerous occasions in this CRA and others that statute does not apply to CRA agreements because they are not development agreements under the statute, and they do not provide anything but financial incentives. So that statute's meant to protect developers who are seeking site plan approvals, building permits, and they have a quote development agreement as defined in Florida statutes with the local government. This is totally different. We've had developers claim that. We've written letters back, and they have backed off in each instance. So in my opinion, and I think it's, 283, 265, something like that, doesn't apply to community redevelopment agency agreements.
Has that been challenged yet?
In court?
Yeah.
No. I mean, clearly these are not development agreements. And we actually have a provision in the agreement itself stating that they're not development agreements under the statute, and that the developer or the grantee waives their rights to, use that statute to extend their time frames.
Because I know this, as on the city side, we have plenty of people, and the clock hasn't started ticking because of that statute and the declaration of an emergency. So,
Well, it's interesting because the developer can invoke it. I mean, I don't think there's anything now stopping a developer from going forward with a site plan approval, but some people just don't want to because of, rising costs, interest rates and the like, and they rely on the statute to basically sit on their hands.
wait
But
for
they
rates to
that
go
could
down.
result in them losing CRA funding.
Right. Okay. Because I think that when they come to ask us for money, they should already be pretty well moving along, knowing what they're going to do, and that they're serious and they want to move their project forward just as fast as possible, and don't keep us lingering. As every council member, board member here has said, that there's a need out there, people waiting, queued up, waiting to participate. And if somebody's hesitating just because whatever.
We've had projects that have come to us where we had site plan approval already, so it wasn't an issue. We've had other ones where we're still waiting. The other statute, obviously, that affects these grant agreements and the CRA's financial incentives is the Live Local Act.
I know.
We rely heavily, obviously, in providing grants to projects that will create TIF. I mean, that's what this whole agency is about, increasing the tax increment revenue for the city of North Miami. So when you find these developers now who are going for the property tax abatements that are available under Live Local, that's problematic. And we have provisions in the agreement that if we do that, we can terminate the agreement.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, we're more than happy if they want to use Live Local to go through
With our money.
an expedited approval process.
Right, but not for the tax exemption.
But not for a tax exemption.
I know you asked for a recommendation. Do you need a vote for us to, give you direction for?
No, if you give any direction
Recommend-
today, that's something I can, but today is not a publicly noticed
Okay.
meeting for voting purposes, but I can take direction from you at any time. So,
If it's the board's willing, but I think we should fund the rest of the residential housing.
Oh, absolutely.
No, that's,
Yeah, he said it was 37, I think.
yeah, it will be 12 more to do the complete 37.
no,
Okay.
Yeah.
that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay, no,
thank
just wanted
you.
to make sure that she knew.
The last thing I'm gonna ask you, I think we did that. You did that last year. Can we be provided a list of projects and where they are, dollar
Yes.
amount and everything, so that at least we have a comprehensive.
Absolutely.
I think she does that quarterly, no?
Yeah, quarter.
Yes, we do that.
Yeah.
So whenever you have your board meeting, we normally in your packet do the project updates. But yes, so at the next
You know-
board meeting for September, I will do that. But if you want something district specific, then I can also provide that for you.
Yeah, because just want to make sure that I have quarterly. Sometimes it's too. It's
But we
a
do-
long,
we
it's
do
a
it
long time
monthly.
for old men. So
Do it monthly.
yeah, so we just want to see the numbers and then
Yes.
see where we at, because as I said, a lot of projects holding down
Yeah.
a dollar in the CRA and then just sitting, the money's just sitting there, and others are like ready to move and they cannot move just because of funding. So that is something this fiscal year we need to open our eyes into it, because we have to move the city forward.
I agree. I do have a question for the board. Is it right now just the appetite for the block by block for West Dixie and that $1 million allocation? Is that something that the board has an appetite to see us move forward with?
I'd like to encourage the board to please have that. I see some rolling of the eyes.
When you say West 60, I thought you were going to start on 125th West 60 and
No, I
move
think
on
you should start
down.
on 140.
But I do know the eyesores at the end in District 3. So
Oh, is that right? That's what we want to do.
I just want to see the know me. I think in our downtown concept plan, like we have like these letters like know me that's supposed to go like at the end of West 60. When you're. I have some plans for the 1.2. We'll talk.
Oh, God. The agency has plans for the 1.2.
We have plans for the 1.2.
Divide it by
very-
4.
Yeah.
Divide by 4 and,
I know. And
happy.
always, I just wanted to confirm as well, the Enchanted Forest, we could also include that as a capital project for us to be able to remove those invasives and do the horse canopy if it is the will of the board. So again, that's just something that I'm looking for a direction when I'm reworking the numbers to present that as something that we can do. So
I think the Enchanted Forest is a crown jewel, and I was encouraged the the board members to go through there. It's absolutely devastating what's happening out there so quickly, between the facilities and the road and the horse ring and the invasives that are just killing the
potato.
trees so fast. The potato vines, now we got a couple other ones in there, and unless we get in there and make a full-fledged effort to get it out. Because what happens is you'll start in one part of the park and you do a little bit this year and then a little bit next year and then you're you never get caught up. And so it's in serious trouble right now. And so the park's been neglected and our shelters are still not repaired, but that's a conversation at the council meeting. But I think that, and I think the shade over almost all of our parks, at the library, at the water park, I think, Councilwoman, you're going to have at some point in time shade going over that because it's
Covering,
so
it's
needed,
hot.
the covering. It's almost a necessity now at all of our parks that have kids active in there. And so I think that's money well spent.
Yes, and then of course the bathrooms at Griffin Center. I think we can all agree that that's a renovation that we can do. And just
Even the park.
for a reminder for you all, whenever we're choosing these kinds of capital investments from the CRA does need to work hand in hand with the city to make sure it's not something that was in the CIP for 3 years. So when we're choosing those kinds of projects, we need to look at something that was not in the city's CIP for 3 years, and then we can say, okay, that's something we can partner with you on. So that's how we make some of these decisions on the capital improvements. Okay. Well, if there are any other questions, but if not, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. It is.
Staff will be reaching out so that we can schedule our briefings so that we can go in depth with all of these. So I'll be seeing you all soon. Thank you.
They said motion to adjourn. So.